This is the story of Anna. She didn't fight giants, lead armies, or call down fire from heaven, but her faith, quiet, steady, and unshakable, outlived generations. She prayed, she waited, and she believed. And because of that, she witnessed something no one else in her lifetime did. A lifetime of faithfulness can lead to one glorious moment of fulfilled hope. The old clock tower didn't keep perfect time anymore, but every morning, just as the sky turned from deep navy to soft gold, Anna was there, sitting in the courtyard beneath it, surrounded by her flowers and the silence of sacred space. The temple rose tall behind her, casting long shadows across the garden stones. But Anna didn't notice the shadows. She'd learned to live in the light. She sat on her favorite bench, tracing the soft edge of her prayer shawl with fingers wrinkled like river stones. Then, without looking up, she whispered into the air, "I still remember the day I first lost him. But even then, you were with me." It had been over 80 years since that afternoon in Galilee. The sun was brighter back then, she always said. Or maybe it just felt brighter when she was 17 and in love. Anna's husband, Elior, had built their home from cedar and limestone. He smelled like olives and smoke and always hummed when he worked. "I'm making us a doorway strong enough to last 50 years, he told her, swinging the hammer with boyish pride. She had laughed and said, "That's good, because I plan to be with you for at least 60. But only 7 years passed before the coughing started, and one morning, the song in their house stopped. Her neighbors brought bread. Her mother wept beside her, but Anna, she just walked to the edge of the hill behind their home and sat down under a fig tree. The wind was warm that day. It carried the smell of barley and pine. And though her heart felt like it had fallen into pieces, something in her spirit whispered, "You're not finished yet." She stayed on that hill until the sun dipped low, painting the sky in amber streaks. And then she whispered, "If I can't live beside him, then I'll live beside you." And just like that, the memory drifted away, like the last note of a song carried off by the wind. But Anna was no longer that young bride on the hillside. She was back in the garden, older now, but still faithful, still waiting. A dove fluttered down beside Anna's bench, pecking softly at a crumb. She smiled. "You always find me, don't you?" The temple courtyard was empty, save for the hum of the wind and the soft creak of a lantern swinging on a hook nearby. It was peaceful here, holy even. And every day, Anna came, morning and night, lifting up prayers like songbirds. People didn't understand. Some forgot she was even there. But Anna knew something others didn't. Hope was never wasted on God. Even now, after all these years, her heart beat with quiet expectation. Because deep down, she believed today could be the day. The sun had barely crested over the temple walls when Anna heard it. Not the clang of priestly bells, not the shouts of children or merchants, but a sound she hadn't heard in decades. Laughter. Not just any laughter. A baby's laugh. Light and sudden, like a wind chime tossed by the breeze. Anna looked up from her bench beneath the clock tower garden. A family had entered the temple courtyard, young, tired, radiant. The mother was gently bouncing the baby on her hip, while the father, nervous and proud, carried 2 small doves in a cage. Anna squinted, her hand resting above her brow like a visor. "How long has it been," she whispered, "since a child's laughter danced through these walls?" The old temple stones echoed with quiet prayers and formal rituals. But joy? That was rare here. People came with burdens, offerings, questions. Anna watched the little boy wriggle in his mother's arms, stretching his tiny hands toward the light. Something about him stirred something deep in her spirit. "He's beautiful," she said to no one in particular. Behind her, a temple servant passed by and paused. "You always say that about babies," he teased gently. Anna gave a knowing smile. "Only when it's true." She remembered when she had once longed to hold a child of her own. Back when she was still Anna of Asher, young, hopeful, wrapped in embroidered veils and wide-eyed dreams. She and Elior had prayed, had hoped, had waited. But no child came. Still, they built a home of joy anyway. They fed the poor. They planted olive trees. They laughed together on rainy nights. And after Elior was gone, Anna made a quiet promise to God. "If I never get to hold a child of my own," she had said, "then let me spend my life helping others raise theirs. Let me see the children who come through your house, and let me live long enough to see the one you promised." That was nearly 84 years ago. And yet, the memory was as fresh as sunrise. Anna stood up slowly, her sandals brushing fallen petals. Her back ached, but she followed the sound of that laughter. Her heart was thudding now, not from age, but from something else. Expectation. She walked past the lantern post, past the column with ivy curling around its base, and into the open courtyard. She didn't know why. She just knew, she had to get closer. Anna stepped quietly into the wide-open courtyard, following the warmth of a sound that had lit something inside her heart. The baby was there, chubby, wide-eyed, reaching for the golden light that trickled through the temple arches. His mother rocked him gently, humming something sweet and ancient. The father adjusted the small cage of doves they'd brought as an offering. Anna didn't want to intrude. She just wanted to see, to listen, to be near. But then, she wasn't the only one watching. From the other side of the courtyard, another figure appeared, slow, steady, eyes shining with something deep and unshakable. His name was Simeon. Everyone in the temple knew him, not because he was powerful or wealthy, but because he had waited. Just like Anna, he had waited years, decades, for something he'd been promised long ago. "Lord," Simeon had once whispered in the quiet of his room, "don't let me die before I see your Messiah." And the Spirit of God had whispered back, "You won't." No one else knew that secret. Not the priests, not the rabbis, not even his closest friends. But Anna had always suspected Simeon was waiting for something holy. Now, here he was. And his steps were sure, even though his hair was white and his knees creaked with every move. Anna stood still as Simeon approached the couple. The young mother noticed him first. "Oh," she said softly, holding the baby closer. "Can I help you, sir?" Simeon's eyes filled with tears. "No," he replied, "but you've helped me." The mother looked confused, then turned toward her husband. But the baby, he just giggled, as if he recognized something ancient in this stranger's face. "May I?" Simeon asked gently, reaching toward the child. The father hesitated for a split second, then nodded. Simeon took the baby into his arms, and for a moment, just one moment, it was as if all the years of longing melted away. The old man held the infant close and lifted his eyes toward heaven, and then he sang. Not a song with notes and melodies, but a prayer, a declaration. "Now, Lord," Simeon breathed, "you can let your servant depart in peace, because my eyes have seen your salvation." Anna's breath caught in her throat. She didn't move. She didn't blink. She could feel it, the truth of it, deep in her bones. It was him, the one they had all waited for, the one the prophets had spoken of, the light for the Gentiles, the glory of Israel. And somehow in this moment, the years melted away, the aching knees, the gray hair, the quiet mornings in the garden, it all made sense. Because this wasn't just a baby. This was the promise. After a long silence, Simeon gently placed the child back into his mother's arms. His voice grew soft, almost like a whisper between friends. "This child," he said, "is destined to cause the falling and rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be spoken against." The mother looked down, holding her son close. "And a sword will pierce your soul too," Simeon added gently. "But don't fear. He is the one." Anna finally stepped forward. Her hands trembled slightly, not from weakness, but from awe. She had prayed. She had fasted. She had worshipped in this temple day and night. And now the waiting was over. But instead of weeping, she smiled. "Oh Lord," Anna whispered, "you have been faithful to me. And now I will spend the rest of my days telling everyone who will listen that you have kept your promise." The temple courtyard returned to its usual rhythm, priests moving about in silence, visitors whispering prayers, doves cooing in their cages. But for Anna, nothing was the same. She sat beneath the fig tree in the garden by the clock tower, her heart still glowing. Her eyes sparkled like a child's, and a smile kept returning to her lips, no matter how hard she tried to stay calm. She had seen him, the promise, and now she had something to say. Later that afternoon, a group of young women gathered by the outer courtyard steps, waiting to draw water and chat before the evening sacrifices. Among them was a quiet girl with bright eyes and a scarf too big for her head. Her name was Tirzah, and she had come to the temple from Jericho with her aunt for the first time. While the others gossiped about who was marrying who and whose cousin had gone off to Rome, Tirzah's gaze drifted toward the garden gate, where Anna was sitting alone. "Who's that?" she whispered, tugging her aunt's sleeve. Her aunt glanced up. "That's Anna. Don't mind her. She's harmless." "She looks happy," Tirzah said, "like she just saw something wonderful." "Maybe she did," the aunt replied with a chuckle. "She always looks like that." But Tirzah couldn't let it go. She waited until the women went back inside, then tiptoed toward the garden, the oversized scarf bouncing with each step. Anna looked up when she heard the soft patter of sandals. "Well, hello," she said warmly. "Hi," Tirzah replied, suddenly unsure. I just wanted to ask, why are you smiling?" Anna chuckled. "That's a wonderful question. Come sit with me." Tirzah plopped down beside her on the bench, folding her hands nervously. "I'm Tirzah," she said, "from Jericho." "I'm Anna," the old woman replied, "from Asher, though these days I mostly live in this courtyard." Tirzah leaned forward. "So, what happened today?" Anna took a deep breath, as if drawing in the memory again. "Today I saw the one we've waited for all our lives." "The one?" "Yes, the Messiah, the Savior, the baby from Isaiah's scrolls. He came. His parents brought him to the temple this morning." Tirzah's eyes widened. "Really? What did he look like?" Anna smiled. "Like every other baby, and yet completely different. You could feel it in your bones, the peace, the power, the promise." The girl was quiet for a moment. Then she whispered, "I wish I had seen him." Anna reached out and gently touched her hand. "But you have. Through me. Through Simeon. And soon. Through the whole world. That's how God works, Tirzah. When you share what you've seen, it keeps spreading. It keeps shining." Tirzah smiled back. "Can I tell someone too?" Anna grinned. "That's the idea." As the sun dipped low behind the temple's highest spire, casting golden shadows across the courtyard, Anna and Tirzah sat side by side, one old, one young, but both caught in the light of something far bigger than themselves. Hope. And it was only beginning to grow. The next morning, the temple felt different. The stones still stood. The priests still moved in quiet steps. The rituals still unfolded just as they always had. But something invisible had shifted. Like a breeze before a storm, or the first flicker of a flame before it grows into fire. Anna rose early, as always, and made her way through the courtyard. But this time, she didn't walk silently. She had something to say. "I saw him," she told an elderly man resting beneath an olive tree. "I saw the promised one, with my own eyes. He was here yesterday." The man squinted. "The promised one?" "Yes," Anna said, her eyes glowing. "A child. Just a child, but, oh, I knew it the moment I saw him. The Messiah. His name is Jesus." The man chuckled uncertainly. "A child can't be the Savior. He hasn't done anything yet." "He will," Anna replied. "The Spirit told me so. The same Spirit that kept me alive all these years waiting for this moment." She moved on, letting the conversation hang in the air like perfume. Nearby, a group of women folding clean temple cloth stopped to listen as Anna repeated her story. One raised an eyebrow. "You mean the couple from Nazareth? With the doves?" Anna nodded. "Yes. The mother, Mary. She carried him like treasure wrapped in linen. I've never felt the presence of God so near." Some whispered. Others rolled their eyes. But one woman quietly bowed her head and whispered a prayer of her own. Tirzah, the young girl from Jericho, sat cross-legged nearby, drawing little patterns in the dust. She was listening too, closer than anyone realized. She watched Anna's every word like a spark looking for something to catch. Later that day, when a few other girls walked past the outer court giggling and chattering about clothes and marriages, Tirzah popped up like a flame. "Do you want to hear something real?" she asked boldly. "Anna saw the Messiah." One of the girls laughed. "That old woman who feeds birds?" "She feeds people too," Tirzah shot back. "And God feeds her. She's telling the truth. I believe her." The girls moved on, still giggling, but one of them turned back for a moment just to look. That night, when the temple grew quiet and shadows stretched long over the courtyards, Anna sat once more in her garden beneath the clock tower. But she wasn't alone this time. A small group had gathered, quietly, without fanfare. An old couple who had journeyed from Damascus, a tired merchant with kind eyes, a servant who usually swept the stone floor but had paused just long enough to listen. Anna folded her hands and looked at them. "I was 17 when I became a widow," she said softly. "And I've spent all the years since in this place, waiting, worshiping, listening." She looked up toward the temple sky, the stars beginning to blink awake above them. "Yesterday I saw him, the one Isaiah promised, the one our people have longed for. His name is Jesus, and though he is small now, he will grow, he will rescue, he will redeem." The courtyard was silent, Then someone asked, "What should we do?" Anna smiled. "Tell someone. Whisper it. Sing it. Pass it like a lamp in the dark, because he has come, and the world will never be the same." And just like that, something new flickered to life, not in the temple stones or in the sky, but in the hearts of those who listened. The waiting was over, but the story had only just begun. By the third day after she saw the child, the temple was buzzing with quiet questions, not official questions, not the kind the priests would announce aloud. These were the soft, sideways whispers, the ones people shared while filling water jars or waiting in the shadow of the walls. "Did you hear what the widow said? She claims she saw the Messiah. They say she's been praying here for over 80 years. Maybe that's why her eyes see what others don't." Anna, however, remained unchanged. She still woke before sunrise. She still walked the temple paths with peace in her step and prayer on her lips. But now, when she paused to rest beneath the fig tree or knelt beside the stone basin, people began to gather, just a few at a time. Some came out of curiosity, others came with questions, and some came because something inside them whispered, "What if it's true?" Anna never pressured anyone. She just told the story, gently, joyfully, like someone watering seeds and trusting God to make them grow. But not everyone was pleased. On the fourth day, as Anna knelt in the courtyard pouring out her usual prayer, 2 temple attendants stood nearby, watching her with narrowed eyes. "She's disrupting things," one muttered. "She's not a priest. She shouldn't be preaching." The other one shrugged. "She's just an old woman. People will stop listening." But they didn't. In fact, more people came that day than any before. Not in a crowd. Anna didn't want crowds, but in clusters. A mother and her son. A merchant who had heard something in the marketplace. A widow from Bethlehem who'd been weeping for years and didn't know why. Anna didn't offer proof. She offered peace. Later that afternoon, Anna sat with Tirzah again. The sun was lower now, dripping orange light over the garden stones. Tirzah leaned against her, hugging her knees. "They said you're not allowed to speak like that," she whispered, "that you're just a woman and not a priest." Anna smiled, brushing a silver strand of hair from her cheek. "Let them say what they like. I'm not preaching. I'm testifying." "What's the difference?" Anna looked at her kindly. "Preaching tells you what to believe. Testifying tells you what I've seen, what I know." Tirzah grinned. "Well then, I'm going to testify too." The next morning, just as the bells began to chime the day's prayers, a tall figure stood at the gate, cloaked in a dusty blue robe. He walked slowly, like someone who had traveled far, and carried a scroll bag slung over his shoulder. He didn't speak much, but his eyes were alert. He found Anna sitting alone again, whispering to a dove that had perched on the bench beside her. "Excuse me," the man said softly. Anna looked up. "My name is Ezra," he said. "I've come from Hebron. I heard you've seen something." Anna nodded gently. "I've seen the one, the child, the Messiah." Ezra sat beside her without hesitation. "I've studied the prophets since I was a boy. I was raised among scribes and scholars, but last night I dreamed of fire and a child wrapped in linen." Anna didn't flinch. "Then you've seen what I saw." He took a deep breath and smiled. "Then I believe you, and I'll tell others too." And so, another flame was lit. Not the kind that burns cities, the kind that changes hearts. Ezra and Tirzah became like two wings beside Anna, one young and eager, the other trained and wise. Together they carried the story, quietly, boldly, faithfully, just like Anna had done for so many years. By the end of the week, Anna's words had slipped through the walls of the temple like sunlight through a lattice, quiet, soft, and unstoppable. And those who heard her message, some lit up like candles, some didn't know what to think, and some didn't want to believe a word of it. But that didn't stop the story from growing. Ezra, the scribe from Hebron, moved through Jerusalem like a silent messenger. He spoke to merchants in their stalls, scribes at the city gates, and teachers at their scroll tables. "The child is here," he said. "He was brought to the temple. Anna saw him. So did Simeon. The Spirit confirmed it." "Where is he now?" one rabbi asked, arms crossed. "Gone back to Nazareth, I believe," Ezra answered. "Then how do we know? He's truly the one," the man challenged. Ezra didn't argue. He simply said, "Because when he comes again, you'll know." Tirzah, too, was bold in her own way. She brought the story into the streets, not with scrolls or sermons, but with laughter and joy. She told the neighborhood children while they gathered olives. "He's already here," she giggled, tossing a smooth green fruit into her basket. "The king! But he's still small, like a secret treasure growing underground." "Is he going to fight soldiers?" a boy asked, swinging a stick like a sword. Tirzah shook her head. "Number! He's going to fight the dark and win." The children didn't understand everything, but they remembered the way she smiled when she spoke his name. Meanwhile, Anna remained in her quiet garden, letting the message take root in others. One evening, she was pouring water onto the fig tree when a woman approached cautiously. "I heard what you said," the woman murmured, "about the Messiah." Anna nodded and handed her the clay jar. "I'm not anyone special," the woman added, "just a seamstress from the lower quarter." Anna placed a hand over hers. The Messiah didn't come for the special. He came for the hungry, the humble, the hurting. Tears formed in the woman's eyes. "Do you think he'll ever come to my house?" Anna smiled. "I believe he already has. You just haven't seen it yet." But not all hearts were soft. In a quiet room lined with tall torches and shelves of law scrolls, a group of religious leaders had begun to talk. "She's stirring the people," one muttered. "A woman, and a widow no less." "She's harmless," another insisted. "She fasts. She prays. Let her talk." But others are repeating her words. "A child from Nazareth. Come now. What prophet ever came from Galilee?" They argued. They whispered. They dismissed. But they were listening. And that meant the story had reached them. One afternoon, as Tirzah returned from gathering herbs outside the city wall, she was stopped by a tall man in priestly robes. "Are you the girl who's been spreading talk about the Messiah?" he asked sharply. Tirzah blinked. "I've just been telling the truth." His lips tightened. "You would do better to leave prophecy to those who've studied it." Tirzah tilted her head. "But prophecy came to a stable, not a scroll house." She ran before he could respond, her scarf flapping behind her like a banner. That night, she told Anna what happened. Anna only chuckled. "My dear," she said, "truth has never been welcomed by those afraid of change." "Should I stop?" Tirzah asked. Anna leaned closer. "Would you stop telling the sunrise to come back tomorrow?" "No," Tirzah said with a smile. Then don't stop sharing the light. The next morning, Anna looked around at her little circle, Ezra with his quiet eyes, Tirzah with her eager smile, and 3 new faces she hadn't seen before. A shepherd's wife, a young boy who limped, and an older man who said nothing but stayed until every word was spoken. She sat on her bench and folded her hands. Let's begin, she said. And with that, Anna lifted her voice once again, soft and strong, like a song carried on the wind. The temple walls were tall, the city was loud, the world was still dark, but one by one, olive branches were sprouting, peace in the middle of silence, light in the cracks of the coldest hearts. And though most didn't know it yet, something had already begun. The days that followed felt quieter. Not on the outside. Jerusalem still clattered with footsteps and temple bells, and the city still echoed with prayers and business and all the things people did to fill their lives. But inside Anna, something had changed. She had seen the Messiah. She had told others. She had waited her whole life for one holy moment. And now that it had passed, she wasn't quite sure what to do with the silence it left behind. She still woke before the sun. She still prayed beneath the fig tree. She still sat in the garden where the shadows stretched long and peaceful. But fewer people came now. Ezra had returned to Hebron. Tirzah had left with her aunt to visit family in Jericho. The visitors were fewer. The whispers had died down. And Anna began to wonder. Was that it? She thought of the child, Jesus, with his wide eyes and quiet laugh. She remembered the weight of that moment in the temple, the stirring in her soul, the look on Simeon's face. And yet, now the benches were empty. The garden was still. No crowds, no singing angels, no follow-up miracles, just the soft sound of leaves brushing stone. Anna rested her head in her hands and let out a quiet breath. Did I imagine it, Lord? She whispered. Did I make too much of one moment? She pressed her fingers together in her lap. It was so real. It is real. But now, it feels far away. That afternoon, a gray wind crept through the courtyard. A storm was coming. Not heavy, but enough to scatter people back into their homes. Anna stayed, tucked beneath the wooden overhang near the gate. She wrapped her shawl tighter and leaned into the breeze. And that's when she noticed something. In the garden, next to the fig tree, something had sprouted. A single green stem. She didn't remember planting it. No one else came here to dig or sow, but there it was, small, new, and reaching upward. Anna blinked at it, then smiled. Of course, she murmured. That night, she couldn't sleep. The wind knocked gently on the temple columns, the fig tree swayed, and Anna lay awake on her thin mat inside her prayer room, eyes wide, heart slowly filling with peace again. Even when it's quiet, God is still moving. Even when no one else sees, the promise still grows. She rolled over and whispered, "Thank you, Lord, for trusting me with the waiting, even when no one watches." The next morning, a surprise waited at the garden gate. Tirzah, windblown, dusty, smiling. "I came back," she grinned. Anna beamed. "Why?" "Because I missed your voice, and I missed the garden, and because I believe again." Anna reached out and held her hand. "You never stopped believing. You just needed the silence to remember why it mattered." Tirzah's eyes softened. "Do you think we'll ever see him again?" Anna looked up at the golden sky. "I don't know. But whether I do or not, he is still coming, still working, still growing." She glanced at the green sprout beside the fig tree. And when he's ready, he will be seen. Faith doesn't always shout. Sometimes it waits. Sometimes it whispers. Sometimes, after the miracle, it just keeps watering the ground. But the silence doesn't mean the story is over. Sometimes it means the roots are getting stronger. Tucked beneath Anna's sleeping mat was a small bundle, wrapped in faded blue cloth and tied with a piece of olive green ribbon. She rarely opened it. Not because it was forgotten, but because it was so full of memory she could only open it when her heart was steady and the world was quiet. That morning, after Tirzah had gone to gather figs, Anna sat in her corner room, unwrapped the bundle, and stared down at what it held. A dozen folded pieces of parchment, all of them letters, all of them unsent. Some were written to Elior, her husband. The first one, scribbled in shaky script, had been written the day after he died. She hadn't planned to write it. It just happened. "Dearest," it began, "the fig tree is still blooming, and your tools are still leaning against the wall. I left your sandals by the door in case heaven has roads." Another letter, years later, read, "I keep praying in the temple like we always did together. They probably think I'm strange, but I think they just don't understand what waiting feels like." Others were addressed to no one in particular. One said, "To the child I never held." Another simply began with, "Lord, are you still listening?" Anna smiled at that one. She had written it during one of the harder years, when her legs hurt every morning and the prayers felt like they echoed instead of rising. She had written it with tears. But here she was now, years later, with proof that God had been listening all along. She ran her fingers over one more letter she had nearly forgotten. It was written to a young girl who used to sit with her years ago, long before Tirzah. Her name was Mara. She had come with her mother during festival season, wide-eyed and eager. Anna had taught her psalms, helped her memorize the prophets, and braided her hair one afternoon under the garden vines. But Mara's family had moved away, and Anna never saw her again. She had written a letter anyway. "Dear Mara, the world may not remember women like us, but heaven does. Don't stop waiting. Don't stop hoping. And if you ever wonder if your life matters, remember this: God sees." Just as Anna was folding the letters again, footsteps approached. She tucked them away and turned. A young woman stood at the garden gate, breathless from climbing the hill. Her cloak was dusty, her eyes wide. "Are you Anna?" she asked. Anna tilted her head. "Yes." The woman's hands trembled. "My name is Mara. My mother brought me here when I was a child. You taught me the Psalms." Anna blinked. Mara continued, "I never forgot. I moved far away, but I still sing them. I've been teaching them to my daughters." A soft laugh escaped Anna's lips, part surprise, part awe. "You came back," she whispered. "I had to," Mara said. "I heard something about a child, about the Messiah, and I knew you would tell the truth." Anna rose slowly from her bench and took the young woman's hands in her own. "Come," she said, voice soft and sure. "There's a sprout in the garden and a promise in the air. I will tell you everything." Some letters never reach the people they're written for. Some prayers seem to drift away like smoke. But with God, nothing faithful is ever wasted. Words, tears, longings, they're all gathered, held, returned in His time. And sometimes they show up on your doorstep. The wind came suddenly that evening. Not loud enough to frighten, but strong enough to send cloaks flying and scatter leaves across the stone steps of the temple courtyard. Anna lit her small clay lantern just before the breeze reached her bench beneath the fig tree. The flame flickered, stretched, then settled. She tucked it between two smooth rocks. That little flame had become a symbol, a reminder. Even in the storm, the light still stays. The clouds above Jerusalem were heavy with rain. Most people hurried into covered stalls or ducked beneath the canopies near the temple walls, but Anna didn't move. Instead, she laid out extra shawls on the garden bench and watched the sky with a peaceful smile. She whispered, "Let whoever needs shelter find it here tonight." And not long after, someone did. The first was a boy, maybe 10, with a satchel too big for his body and eyes wide with uncertainty. He stopped just outside the garden gate and blinked through the wind. Anna gave him a gentle wave. "Lost?" she asked. He nodded. "My uncle was supposed to meet me at the southern steps. I think I came too early, or too late." Anna patted the bench beside her. "Come warm your hands." He hesitated, then came closer. "You're not scared of the storm?" "No," she smiled. "Some of God's best lessons come wrapped in wind." Next came a man with dust on his sandals and worry on his face. "My donkey spooked and ran," he sighed. "I was headed back to Bethlehem. Got caught in the rain." Anna handed him her last dry cloth. "Welcome to the temple garden," she said kindly. "You're right on time." "Time for what?" he asked, confused. "To hear something you didn't expect," she replied. Soon, others followed. A widow with a broken sandal, a young girl who had wandered too far from her father. Even a guard on his break who paused when he saw the lantern glow from a distance. No one planned to be there. But one by one, they gathered under Anna's little shelter, warmed their hands near her lantern, and waited to see what she would say. Anna's voice was soft at first, more like a hush than a speech. "There was a child brought to this temple, small, gentle, but more powerful than armies. I saw him with my own eyes, the Messiah. His name is Jesus." No one laughed. The man from Bethlehem leaned forward. "Why would he come as a baby?" Anna's eyes twinkled. "So we wouldn't be afraid." The boy asked, "Where is he now?" "Growing," Anna said. "And one day, he'll walk these streets again. But today, he's already walking in our hearts." The widow spoke next. "Do you think someone like me could be part of that story?" Anna reached for her hand. "You already are." Outside, the wind howled louder, but inside the garden, there was light, peace, a sense that something holy was unfolding in the most unexpected place. And Anna knew, deep in her soul, this was why she was still here, to welcome the wanderers, to light the flame, to whisper the truth even in the storm. Sometimes God doesn't wait for perfect weather. Sometimes He sends people straight into the wind so they'll stumble into the one place where light still burns. And sometimes that place is a garden with a faithful woman and a tiny flame that refuses to go out. The storm passed by morning. It left behind puddles on the stone walkways, droplets clinging to temple columns, and the smell of wet cedar in the air. Anna's little garden was quiet again. The lantern, now cool, sat beside a fresh bundle of olive branches, and the fig tree, always faithful, had held firm in the wind. She had just finished her morning prayer when she heard the sound. Footsteps, not hurried or hopeful, heavy, hesitant, like someone carrying something invisible, but very real. She turned slowly toward the garden gate and saw him. The man was older than she remembered, his shoulders slumped forward and his eyes Well, they didn't carry mockery anymore. Years ago, this same man had mocked her in the temple courtyard. "She's just a lonely widow," he had said, "too old to be useful, always talking about promises like they belonged to her." That day, Anna had simply smiled and gone back to her prayers. But now, here he was again, quiet, uncertain, standing on the edge of the garden like someone not sure he was allowed in. Anna gave him a gentle nod. "Come sit," she said. "The bench remembers you." He stepped forward and lowered himself beside her, the silence between them stretching like morning fog. "I wasn't kind to you," he finally said. "No," Anna replied. "You weren't. I said things I regret." "I know." He glanced at her, surprised by her calm. "I've been watching you," he added, "from a distance. I never believed your stories." Anna folded her hands in her lap. "What changed?" "My wife," he said quietly. "She believed you. She came to hear you speak. Every time you sat under this fig tree, she listened." Anna's eyes softened. "She was the one who left fresh figs at my feet." He nodded. "She passed last season. I wasn't ready." Anna's voice lowered. "We never are." The man looked down at his hands, knotted and trembling. "Before she died, she whispered the name Jesus. She said he was real, that he would come for her." He shook his head. "I don't know if I believe in anything anymore." Anna turned toward him. "Then you're ready." "Ready for what?" "To hear the truth." She leaned forward, her voice gentle as falling rain. "I didn't stay here all these years because I wanted attention. I stayed because God promised. And when I finally saw that little child, that tiny miracle in the arms of his mother, I knew." She pointed to the fig tree. "You see this tree? I planted it the year after my husband died. It didn't bear fruit for 10 seasons, but I didn't give up." She looked back at him. "Some hearts are like that tree. They need time. They grow in silence. But when the fruit comes, oh, it's worth every empty season." Tears slipped down his face, quiet and sudden. "I want to believe," he said. "You can." Anna reached over and rested her hand on his shoulder. "It's never too late to hope again." He nodded, more to himself than to her. "I'm sorry I waited this long." Anna smiled. "God waits longer for all of us. Sometimes the loudest voices in the shadows are the ones most desperate for light. And sometimes the people who once laughed at your faith come back because it's the only thing left standing. God's promises are not just for the patient. They're for the broken, the ashamed, the returning, and the ones who finally say, 'I want to believe.'" Word travels strangely in Jerusalem. Sometimes it flows like the Jordan, swift and loud. Other times it slips through cracks like light under a doorway, whispering its way from ear to ear. Anna never tried to be known, but after more than 80 years of faithful prayer, people began to speak her name softly, respectfully, like a psalm you only sing when your heart is tender. And one day, word of Anna's quiet light reached someone it wasn't supposed to. A queen. She arrived just before sundown, dressed in a veil so fine it shimmered like morning mist. No guards, no gold, just one servant and a worn expression that did not match her royal robes. Anna didn't recognize her right away. She was kneeling beside the fig tree, humming the same melody she had once sung to Tirzah as a blessing, when the visitor stepped through the garden gate. Are you the one they speak of? The woman asked. The widow who waits for promises? Anna looked up, shielding her eyes from the sun. I am, she said kindly. But the promise already came. The woman knelt beside her without asking permission. I've heard stories, she said. I live in a palace, but the walls are heavy and my heart is hollow. I heard that you saw him, the child. I did. And that he's the one the prophet spoke of? Yes. The woman stared at her hands. I have everything, silks, servants, gardens, that bloom in all seasons, but I would trade it all to feel what you felt. Anna smiled gently. What I felt wasn't for sale, but it's still available. The woman looked surprised. To someone like me? Anna leaned closer. To anyone who wants it. The queen closed her eyes. I always thought faith was for people who had nothing else. Anna shook her head. Faith is for anyone who realizes the world is not enough. She reached for the small clay lantern beside her. This candle, she said, lighting it with steady hands, has burned through storms, winds, and lonely nights. Not because it's strong, but because I kept protecting it, tending it, believing it still had something to give. She passed it to the queen. The woman stared at the flame. This is you? She whispered. Anna nodded. And this can be you too. For a long time, they sat together in the silence. Royalty and widow, palace and prayer, crown and candle. And as the sky darkened above the temple, the flame between them burned brighter. The queen rose slowly and placed something in Anna's hands, a small ring with a pearl in its center. I was told I could give this to someone who taught me something real, she said. Anna closed her fingers around it. I don't need it, she replied. I know, the queen said. That's why it's yours. Faith doesn't care about crowns. It knocks on the doors of kings and servants, rich and poor, loud and quiet. And when the right heart hears the truth, even one whispered in an old garden beneath a fig tree, it lights something royal in the soul. Because God's promises are not just for the lowly. They are for anyone humble enough to listen. The moon rose higher than usual that evening, casting a silver glow over the temple rooftops and wrapping Anna's little garden in soft, sacred light. It was quiet, quieter than usual. Even the doves had gone still. Anna sat alone beneath the fig tree, her hands resting in her lap, her lantern beside her, gently glowing. The small flame danced like it knew. This night was different. Because Anna knew. She could feel it in her bones, in the hush of her breath, in the peace that had settled over her like a warm blanket. Her time was near, not in a fearful way, but in the way a song knows when it has reached its final note. She looked out across the courtyard, remembering the faces, the prayers, the waiting. The moment she saw the child, the tiny miracles that followed, the boy with the lost donkey, the girl from Jericho, the woman with the crown. All of them pieces in a beautiful puzzle only God could see finished. And now, her part was nearly done. She smiled. I've waited long enough, she whispered into the stillness. And I've seen what you promised. She leaned against the fig tree and let her thoughts drift like petals on the breeze. I wonder where he is now, the boy, she murmured. What he's learning, who he's helping. Does he know yet who he is? She chuckled softly. No rush. I waited a lifetime. The world can wait a little longer. As the sky deepened to indigo, footsteps approached once more. Tirzah! She moved quietly now, like she sensed something sacred in the air. She carried a folded blanket and a small cup of warm, honeyed milk. "I brought this for you," she said, kneeling beside Anna. Anna reached out, her fingers brushing the girl's cheek. "You've grown," she said, "not just in height, in heart." Tirzah smiled through a soft tear. "Are you going somewhere?" Anna nodded. "Yes, but not far, just farther in." She pointed to the lantern. "You'll keep that lit for me?" Tirzah pressed her hand over her heart. "Always." Anna closed her eyes for a moment, breathing in the scent of fig leaves, warm milk, and jasmine carried on the wind. "Good," she said softly, "because the world still needs light, and now it's your turn." Later that night, Tirzah sat beside Anna under the tree, the two of them wrapped in silence and starlight. Anna's head rested gently on Tirzah's shoulder. Her breathing slowed, soft and steady. And then, like a feather falling to earth, her spirit rose, quietly, peacefully, joyfully, like a prayer being answered with a whisper from heaven. "Well done." Some people leave with noise, others leave with fireworks. But the most faithful often leave like a candle finally finishing its burn, and when they go, they leave light behind. Anna's story didn't end that night. It simply passed into the hands of the next one willing to carry it. Morning came gently. No trumpets, no announcements, just the rustling of fig leaves and the soft sweep of sunlight through the temple garden. Anna was gone, but the garden still glowed. Tirzah sat beside the fig tree with Anna's lantern in her hands. She had lit it at dawn just as the city began to wake, and the flame burned steady as if it remembered. Visitors passed the garden that morning, curious when they saw her sitting there. "Where's the old prophetess?" someone asked. "She's with the Lord," Tirzah whispered, "but she left her light." Ezra returned from Hebron days later. When he heard what had happened, he didn't speak. He just removed his sandals and sat beside the fig tree in silence. Mara came too, this time with her daughters. They sang softly, the songs Anna had once taught her, their voices weaving between the branches like ribbons in the wind. Even the temple guards, once suspicious of Anna's quiet gatherings, paused outside the gate. One leaned his shoulder on the stone wall, closed his eyes, and listened. Tirzah began to speak, just as Anna had, not with force, but with fire. "She waited her whole life," she said one afternoon to a group of travelers who stopped by. "But it wasn't wasted, because the waiting turned into worship, and the worship made her ready." Someone asked, "Do you think we'll ever see him?" Tirzah smiled. "You will. Maybe not today. Maybe not how you expect. But he is coming." She looked toward the sky. "Just like Anna said." Years passed. The temple changed. Crowds shifted. Kingdoms rose and fell. But people still came to the garden. Some came to remember Anna. Some came to hear the story again. And some came just to sit in the peace. They said something about the place felt holy. Maybe it was the fig tree. Maybe it was the stories whispered through the stones. Maybe it was the memory of a woman who never stopped believing. One afternoon, a boy leaned over the garden wall and asked his mother, "Why is there always a lantern burning here?" His mother answered, "Because once a very old woman saw the Messiah with her own eyes, and she lit a flame that never went out." Anna didn't change the world with power. She changed it with prayer. She didn't lead armies. She led hearts to hope. She didn't see every promise fulfilled, but she saw enough to believe the rest. Her life was a lantern in a dark world. And now it burns in you.